In the quiet moments before the world wakes up, there's a place where pain meets peace, where every breath feels like a prayer and grief stands still. We carry the weight of what was and search for meaning in the smallest things. And sometimes all it takes is one moment to remind us we're still here, still healing.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. You guys know who it is. This is Tony Lynch. I am the host of this podcast. And yes, we are your number one podcast for bringing you stories around death, down to grief, all the messiness that comes in between with some amazing people out here changing people's lives one heartbeat at a time. Now, before I get started, I would like to say that this is a live stream, so if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section. We'll be sure to answer them as we go. One other thing, this is for educational purposes only. Now, without further ado, guys, help me welcome my guest, Miss Jen Taylor, to the show. Jen, how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you, Tony, for having me today.
Of course. And welcome to the show. Now, before we get started, go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience. So tell people who you are, where you're from, and about the work that you do.
Sure. Well, I'm a mom, first of all, and I have two amazing kids. I am a psychotherapist by trade, and I also have learned Reiki healing over the maybe last 5 to 7 years. I love astrology, and I am working on a book series, and we can talk about that a little bit later, but I got 5 of my volumes right here.
Awesome. Yeah, we're definitely going to definitely want to talk more about that,
Sure.
A little bit later in the show. So let's talk about your journey. Well, let's talk about the work that you do.
Okay.
What does the work that you do entail when it comes to helping people?
So I believe very much in meeting people where they are.
Mm-hmm.
As a therapist, there's no point in me, kind of putting out what I think someone should do because it's not my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no point in talking about, higher goals or, actual self-actualization if a person does not have their basic needs met, like Maslow hierarchy of needs. So I just try to start where the person is. What is it that they have come to me to work on? I do believe, like you, I offer hope. I've gotten that a lot as feedback from my clients, to try to shift perspectives on, sometimes we get stuck in a rut. I know I have in my life many times. And sometimes just a good conversation and someone who's caring can really help us to shift that.
Okay. Now, let's talk about your journey of getting into this work, right? And thank you, first and foremost, thank you for the work that you do. Very, very important work, and glad to have met you.
Me too.
And just to know more about and how we can work together, doing more
Sure.
for our communities out here. So let's talk about your journey. How did you get into this?
Well, I was telling someone the other day, I feel like I was kind of the family counselor, like from when I was born. I have a feeling that you might have had that role too.
I don't think I was the counselor, but
Okay, something, right?
yeah, I was something. That's for sure.
So, like from when I was super little, like people would just talk to me, like tell me their stuff. So I do feel like, and I have a spiritual teacher, and she tells me that part of my soul mission in this life is to help soothe souls. So whether that's souls who are living or souls who are transitioning, I do believe that we are all here for a purpose, and I think I'm still finding mine, but I'm kind of getting closer to what that is. I have had some, death has transformed my life as it has for you and so many other people. I don't know if I should get into that now or wait.
No, let's talk about it. Yeah, let's talk about it.
So I actually have a children's book coming out at the end of the year. So I guess the first significant death in my family was my grandfather. And in high school, I had the honor of being taught by Frank McCourt, who wrote Angela's Ashes. Yeah. And he was writing it at that time because I went to high school in the 80s.
Okay.
And he gave us all the assignment to write a children's book and to try to get it published. So I wrote about when my grandpa died, and I was about 5. So this is about my experience of his passing, and I felt guilty even though I was really little. I remember very well feeling bad because I was at a party. I think it was around the holidays. I was at a party, and when I came, my mom picked me up. She told me that my Papa Harry had passed, and that's very complicated for a small person to, like, kind of process or understand. Anyway, so the book is about it's a little mouse called Melvin, and about his journey of losing his grandpa and sort of the hope that his mother gives him in understanding that souls live on, that it's not just our physical bodies but our souls.
Okay.
So anyway, that was the first major loss. I lost my dad when I was 29. He was just a wonderful man, like extremely sensitive, probably too much for this world. He struggled with alcoholism. He was a veteran. He went to Korea, unfortunately, which kind of cemented a lot of the trauma that he had already as a younger person. So that was a huge loss for me, and I did have an amazing connection with my dad, and I think a lot of my sensitivity is from my dad's lineage. The one that really shook me was my mom's passing about 10 years ago. I think I might have mentioned to you, my mother was a bit unconventional for her time. She was born in 1930, but very forward thinking. And she had always told me and my brothers that at some point she would probably stop eating and drinking. Like, not because she was actively suicidal, because she was just tired and she felt that she had lived a full life at 85. And so she did that. But the only thing was, my mom was a bit abrupt. And she basically emailed me in April that in May she would be doing this. This is 2015. So I'm sitting on the bus because we were going up to see my mom during my daughter's spring break. She was 8 years old. And I'm literally sitting on the bus, and I read the email. So my mother's email went like this: I know it will be no surprise to you that I have decided to end my life. Okay. So I'm sitting on a bus, and my kid's in the bathroom, and I'm hysterical. Like, I'm crying. I don't really know what to tell her because she's only 8. And I don't really want to explain that, like, Grandma actually decided to do this. I don't really know how to get around that part. So, and the thing is, my mom was 85. I think she probably didn't really think about the fact that we were all going to get this email like within seconds.
Right.
She could have waited maybe an hour till I got there. Yeah. So it was yeah, I had a lot of feelings about it. She asked me to be on her journey with her of her transitioning. And if you knew my mom, she was extremely, let's just say, planful and controlling. So the fact that she was offering me sort of the control of her end of life was pretty, like, it was quite an honor. Like, it was a very sacred thing for me. I was also pissed because, I didn't want her to go, but I had to respect what she wanted.
Okay.
So I kind of did my best. I just kind of explained to Ellie, my daughter, that Grandma was not feeling, she was sick, and, she might pass sometime soon, in the next few months or something. And so my family came up, they said goodbye to my mom, and basically we started what would only be a week together because that's how ready she was. So she stopped food and water actually the day before I got there. It was a Sunday. Her last meal was on an airplane, which I don't think that would have been my choice. But hey, we're all
very
different.
True. This is very true. Like, last meal on an airplane, flying back. This is good.
So, and then the part of me that knew that she was really ready was she loved to travel. Like, ever since she was young, she traveled like anywhere she could. She went all around the world. And she told me, she had made a promise to my nephew that she would go to his graduation. And she did. And she said, I'm tired. I don't feel like traveling anywhere. So to me, that was like, okay, that's her soul saying, you know what, I'm kind of ready to check out of here. So anyway, I wrote a story about this in one of the books that I did a collab with Blair Hayes, Elite Publishing. And it's the story of my mom. And, you know, I had so many feelings. Initially, I was angry. I felt like I was being cheated out of time with her. I think all of her kids felt that way. Like my brother was like, oh, but I might get married because, you know, gay marriage had just been passed. And then my other brother was like, but you promised to go to my kids' graduations, you know, and that, you know, it's just like we all had something. We were like, wait, you know, but I knew my mom and I knew that there was no point of trying to talk her out of this, right? I could tell her how I felt, but, you know, it was going to happen. Barbara Taylor said it was going to happen. It was going to happen on her time frame.
That's that controlling part right there. She's like, I'm going on my time and not yours, you know?
Exactly. So anyway, it was weird. It was like I was by myself, and I remember at a certain point, like midweek, I'd say Wednesday, you know, she was starting to kind of drift into a coma state. Maybe by Thursday she was there. And so Wednesday she was sort of kind of resting, and, you know, you could tell my friend Lois is a nurse, and she said, Jen, keep talking to her. I didn't know this. She said, the last sense to go is the hearing. So she can hear you. Even if she doesn't respond, you talk to her. And that helped me a lot. And so I just got in bed with her, and I just like took her hand and I said, you know, Mom, I just want you to know that, like, I forgive you for anything that you did that hurt me, whether it was intentional or unintentional. And I just ask your forgiveness for anything that I might have done that hurt you. And she just squeezed my hand, and it was just such a beautiful, sacred moment, you know, because, and I always tell people, I'm like, if you have any words that need to be said, please say them, you know, when the person is still there, as much as you might know in advance. Because for me, that was, I don't know, I just feel like that was one of the most sacred moments in my life. You know, she was on kind of the verge of passing, and it was just such an intimate moment with her, you know. It kind of threw me for a loop, I have to say. I wasn't able to work much after that for a good couple of years, because my work as a therapist is very, you know, like I just couldn't sit here and listen. You know, I just couldn't do it. So I took time off. I did some other little jobs, like some caretaking jobs, which I love, caring for older people. But the thing that was so beautiful about this, just getting back to the story, so I wish you knew my mom, because she literally passed on Mother's Day, which is like, I mean, you have 365 days. Really? Do you have to pick that one?
Yeah.
But that was in her style. That was her, right? So it's like, yeah, I'm not going to forget you, Mom. It's like, did you have any doubt that we would forget you?
So I want to comment on what you just said right there, right? Because doesn't it seem, okay, so you, like myself, right? My mother passed away on my grandmother's birthday on the 25th of July this month, right?
Okay.
And I was just sitting up here thinking, I was like, does it get any better than that, right?
Wow.
Because not only are you celebrating a birthday, but you're also celebrating the life of someone that you love on the same daggone day. Like, oh, okay, who sent the birthday present? Who said that this was supposed to be a birthday present? Like, this is not okay. And the family's like, how did we get a double whammy? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. But doesn't it seem that sometimes the people that we love, the people that we lose, tend to pass on their days, on like their birthdays and things like that. Like I've met probably a good, I don't know, 20, 30 people that this has happened to.
Really?
Yeah. And it's crazy. It happens a lot more frequently than what you may think.
It's fascinating. My dad passed on the spring equinox, March 20th, which isn't the same as a birthday, but I just did feel like it was a very significant day. You know, and they say a lot of people, you would know better than I, but a lot of people pass like at the turning of a season. Do you find that in your research, you know, in talking to people?
Yes and no.
Okay.
And the reason why I answer in both right there is
Yeah.
because it was seen when we go through a losing season, is that when the seasons are changing. Usually
Yeah.
in the springtime, right?
Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
springtime, going into summer, and normally from fall into to winter.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the most active. And I started thinking about it. I said, why does that happen?
Yeah.
And a lot of people, depending on what you believe in and what you don't believe in, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really matter to me. But a lot of people will say, it's the passing of it's the passing into the season, right?
Interesting.
It's the coming from spring into summer,
Yeah.
because most of our bodies are already shocked from the winter, right,
Mm-hmm.
from the cold weather and everything. So when that hot weather comes in, the body, depending on your immune system and things like
Yeah.
that, goes into a shock,
Okay.
right? And it's the same thing from fall into winter. You're going from mild weather to extreme cold,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's
That
the
makes
same
sense.
exact thing. Now it could be a scientific thing. Don't quote me on that, but it
Yeah.
seems to happen a lot more
Yeah. It's
frequently
very. It's
than
very cool.
not, right? And once in a while, you get the random ones
Mm-hmm.
throughout the year as well, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's any significance to it, but
Mm-hmm.
it'd be something to look into.
Yeah.
I wonder. Hmm, that's definitely something to look into.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on that.
of course,
Um. So I guess just getting back to my mom's story, and then be quiet for a few minutes. um.
you're good.
So I have three brothers, and we were all there when my mom passed. One of my brothers, my oldest brother, was in Australia, of all places. It's about as far as you can get from the east coast of the U.S. And so he was very helpful because I was administering the morphine. My mom was able to do this legally because the place that she lived, she had her own apartment, right? She had a doctor who was basically uh, like helping us, but I actually administered the medication, with the pain, to help mom with the pain. So my brother was really helpful because, we agreed that if she took a turn for the worse, I would just tell him, and he would come back right away. But keep in mind that that's very far away to fly home, from Australia. So, um, it was Saturday night, and I kept talking to her because I remembered what my friend said. And I said, okay, Peter's on his way. He's coming, because everyone else was there. And he landed in Los Angeles, and he's taking a flight to Boston. And then my other brother was going to pick him up at the airport. So I just kind of let her, I kind of updated her on what was going on. So he got there at maybe like 12:31 in the morning between Saturday and Sunday. And I let him sit up with her because I moved so he could, be with her. And when he came, she did the same thing. She grabbed his hand, which is like, you think about people like moments from death, or just like, I don't even know what to say about that.
Yeah.
And she did, and then within half an hour, she was gone.
Wow. Wow.
And it was really interesting because I was raised Jewish. I think I'm more spiritual than anything. But I was saying the Tibetan prayer for the dead. I was reading from the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and my brother was reading the Kaddish, which is the Jewish prayer for the dead. It was kind of surreal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's the story.
Well, at least, thank you for sharing that as well. And so I can only, ask one obvious question: how did you navigate that? Right? You lost your dad, then you lost your mother, and everything. How did you, at those different ages,
Mm-hmm.
understand life, but also how did you navigate that and start to cope?
How did I navigate it? What?
How did you navigate the losses, and how did you cope with it?
Yes, it's a great question. Well, I have to say, I don't really think our society knows how to do this,
Mm-hmm.
which is why I'm grateful to people like you.
Yeah.
I don't think that our country is set up to know how to grieve or to like take time. So I have to say, I was able more with my mom. I took time. And I'm grateful to my then husband because I didn't work. Like, he basically carried all the bills. I just couldn't do my therapy work, and that's what I was trained to do. So I remember I just watched astrology videos, which actually 10 years later, I'm pretty good at interpreting a Western astrology chart. So that's a gift.
Okay. That's I like that. I find that fascinating.
Yeah, no, I'm so grateful because I kind of didn't know what to do with myself, Like, I wasn't like clinically, I wasn't so depressed that I couldn't function, but I was depressed enough and sort of shocked enough that I could not do my job well. So, I'm not going to do it if I'm not going to do it well.
Mhm.
It was hard. It was really tough. I did have some people saying, like, kind of get over it, move on type of thing. Isn't it enough time? And no, the answer is no. That's my mom. And as difficult as she was, that is a huge adjustment for any person. And I know I heard a little bit of your story, and I so sorry about the loss of your son. I can only imagine, and I think that must be the most devastating loss, to lose a child.
Well, I'm really careful not to compare losses and things like that because I have experienced several,
Yes.
right? Parents, friends, my younger brother, including my son, grandparents, you name it. They've all gone. So I try not to compare because there's somebody who may view the loss of their sibling, right, as the biggest loss that they've ever experienced, and so forth and so forth. There's people out there that say, "Hey, I lost my father. He was my best friend." And they could have several losses, but that'll be the one that stands out to them the most. So I would say,
yes,
I don't want to put that out there, but I would say the depth of the loss that you feel depends on the relationship that you have with that individual that you've lost, right? And so it's definitely a different world to navigate because I don't think people really understand how it changes the way you see the world, how you view things, right? And the mental direction that it would take you in, because once you go through something like that, you begin to view everything as, and it takes a long time to get it, but you view everything as there's a possibility that this person's going to leave. So that's where the isolation comes from, right? Because we don't, when you're going through that and it strikes you really, really deep, you look at the person, you go, man, I don't know if I want to bring this person into my world because, they're just going to leave me. And it becomes an embedded fear. It really does. And I lived that for a long time. I was just like, why would I bring anybody else in? If everybody keeps dying, it makes sense, because if you're just going to die, then I don't want to keep going through this.
Yeah.
Right. So it will keep you in a constant state of stillness, right? And fear. And you tend to not want to move forward to explore what else is out there. So you don't see what's on the other side. You don't know that you can still experience joy and laughter and love and all those different things. So, and that's why individuals like myself and yourself, we come along and go, no, look, check it out. There's something on the other side, and if you allow me to walk with you, we can get there one step at a time, because it's nothing, you can't rush the process.
Right.
And I've seen people do that too, right? Now, I want to go back to something that you had said earlier and kind of work our way through this. You said that you heard all this, and I'm real careful when I say this too, because some people don't know that the words that they choose can further push a person into a darker place. So saying things like, oh, they're in a better place and things like that, right? Because if they haven't experienced a loss like that, they don't know. And so that's where grace and patience comes in. You have to go, you know what? You don't know. So I'm going to go ahead and let you, give you some forgiveness on that, because I could easily take that person.
Sure.
Or you go, the most famous line that I got was, oh, you can always have another kid.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I can always throw punch you too, So
wow.
different things with that. So
Hmm.
now, sharing my opinions on, I want to get your opinions on that and your thoughts about when people come in that have not experienced those losses.
Yes.
What are some steps that they should take to not sound so
Crass.
heartless? Not
Yes.
heartless, right?
Yeah.
Because and it's not heartless, but I use that word because that's what it comes across as, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Well, going back to what I was saying, I don't think people actually, I don't think we're taught like what to say,
Yeah.
honestly. Like when, I think people really don't know how to handle it. And that's not an excuse, but it's sort of like how it is a lot of times. Um, just my, like 58-year-old self is being extremely honest these days. I will tell you that for me, the whole funeral home thing just creeps me out. Like I will not do that for myself. Like I will not, I don't want that for myself. So I
Okay.
feel like in a way it's very like kind of fake.
Mm. Okay. Okay.
I'm not trying to judge other people's experience because, that's what people know. But I just feel like it separates us from the life and death of the person. But anyway, getting back to what you were asking, I think if you don't really know what to say, like the old expression,
Mhm.
just say little. Let the person know that you're there. Like if you want to talk, I'm here. Or, I love you and I know nothing that I can say can really change how you feel.
Right.
Or even just, I don't know what to say, but just know that I care about you and I'm here if I can do anything. And if you just want me to be quiet, I'll do that too. And I'll just be with you.
I want to add to that. I really want to add to that because biggest challenge that I come across, especially during the work that I do,
Yeah.
some people, well, let's just put it out there. Majority of the people that are trying to support those that are grieving,
Yes.
they tend to dictate the conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that they can be in the same room with the individual who have experienced this loss, and they begin to compare. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I remember when and I tell people
Oh,
don't do
yeah.
that.
Oh, no.
These are some things. These are some words that you should not use. And the first one is I.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ever say I because you take away from the
Yeah.
experience of grief that this individual is going through, and it needs to be a little bit more support. Like, don't dictate it. Don't compare your story to theirs,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not the same. It is not the same. But
Yeah.
instead, look at it as a way of saying, you know what, repeating what you said. I'm just going to sit here with you. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I got no suggestions for you.
Yeah.
I have no advice for you. Only thing I have is a warm body, a pair of ears, and a mouth if you want to talk. But other than that, my job is to sit right here. And this is what I like to call becoming a visitor in somebody else's grief,
Mm.
right? Learn how to visit with
Yeah.
them, right? Learn how to and let's go a little bit deeper. Whenever you go to somebody's house and you come to visitor, see what they need done around the house.
Yeah.
Make it so that they're not catering to you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Go do the dishes. Go throw some laundry in laundry basket and stuff like that. Tell them to put
Yeah.
on their favorite TV show, right?
Yeah.
And you go and do these things, and then you come back and just sit right there,
Mm-hmm.
and don't ask the obvious question: How are you doing?
Yes.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
You just reminded me, I had a dear family friend. She was like an aunt to me who passed last year. She was 85. She was 80, I think. She unfortunately had ovarian cancer. And she taught me that. She said, I know you mean well and you care about me, because I would take her to a lot of her appointments for her treatments. But, don't ask me how I'm doing, because obviously I'm not doing great,
Right, right.
Either I'm in pain or I'm uncomfortable or irritable or whatever. Maybe just say hi or, check in, but yeah, don't ask me how I'm doing. So she actually taught me that.
Okay.
And I think you're right. I think acts of service, like what can I, some people maybe you'd want to just check with them, like, do you mind if I just clean the dishes or, are you hungry? Do you want something? I think it's interesting that so many cultures, ceremony around death involve food, in a way of taking care of the person. It's ironic because I think a lot of times people are not really hungry after they lose someone, but I think
No, we aren't. Oh, you froze up. All right. So while we're waiting for Agenda to unfreeze, guys, tell me what your thoughts are. If you've gone through a grievance spell, what was some of the things that people told you that would just sounded downright ridiculous? But how did you educate them and navigate that without taking it personally? And if you did take it personally, put them in the comment section, right? I would love to know. I would definitely love to know. Mhm. Jen.
sorry,
There she is.
happened. Oh my goodness.
No worries.
So someone doesn't want us to be talking about this.
I see that, and now it just looks. Oh, there you go. It looked like a car wash. I was like, did you just go get in a car wash or something like that? Because there's suds all over your camera. What is going on over here?
Wow.
She just stepped out and went and washed her car. Oh my God.
I don't even have a car.
I was so sorry about that, but you should have saw the screen. It looked like there was a car wash going on. I was like,
That's funny.
did she just step out and go and wash her car while we was okay? I guess this is what we're doing. We're just gonna go.
All right.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Yeah. We're back.
No worries.
Yeah.
No worries. So yeah, I love the fact of you sharing that as well. How did you not take take some of the things personally, right? Because when you're in the midst of it, there's a lot of emotions to come along with that, right? And I know what look, Jen, there was some stuff that was said to me, and I had to catch myself because I was in the mood to throw punch people.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
going to look like an arcade. I was like, throw punch, 100 points, 100 points. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to do was just throw punch people. But it took me a long time to understand that it wasn't personal, that people were
Right.
only speaking from what they knew,
Sure.
right? And you can't fault a person for trying.
Yeah.
Right? You can't fault a person for trying.
Right. I think, one of the difficulties I've had in my life is, and I'm sure a lot of people have had it, I don't know if people talk about it, but I've often felt very judged in my life, like since I was a little kid. I think I'm a little different. Like I was probably the black sheep of the family, which is okay, because to be honest, like I'd rather be who I am than otherwise. But that took a long time to come into that. And so I think one thing that was difficult when my mother passed, I was cleaning out her place with my brother, and someone told me, they said, make sure you don't do any emotional hoarding. Like, don't take stuff. And I'm just like, first of all, I didn't ask you, And second of all, I'm going to take as much of her stuff as I want, and I'm going to bring it home. And as I can, I'm going to go through it. And that really bothered me because I felt like first they were being judgmental. Mm-hmm. And I just felt that it was a very insensitive thing to say at that time. I think people grieve differently. That was my way of grieving. To this day, I have some of her things still, to go through, and I use some of her clothes because it makes me feel close to her. And I have a little ceremony, if I could share that with you. Mm-hmm. It's called spiritual coffee. And it's kind of based on a spiritual teaching that I learned years ago from my teachers, based on a native ceremony, which is a burning. So it's not, you can't replicate or really discuss even a burning. That's not the point. But the point is, it's an offering to spirit of loved ones. So what I do is sometimes I will make coffee for my mom and myself, and I'll sit at my kitchen table, and I will, serve mom her coffee, maybe something sweet with it. She always liked that. And I'll just talk to her as if she were still there physically,
Yeah.
And I found that really comforting. And I know it might sound weird to people, but it's helped me a lot to feel, because there are just things I want to tell her. I want to tell her about the kids and, what's going on or things happening in my life. And I still believe the spirit has that connection. Like, I don't think it's necessary, but it helps me to feel like in like an earth way that I'm having that conversation with her, over a cup of coffee.
So I love that. I love that, and that's part of things, part of some of the stuff I educate people on. Like, if you could have a good, healthy ritual to help you navigate that loss, I always encourage people to do it. I know, I have a friend, a guy. He lost his grandfather, and him as his grandfather, he was very, very close. But he described his grandfather to me, and I started laughing. I didn't mean to laugh out loud, but he started laughing with me. And so it was all okay after that point. So when he described his grandfather to me, I had this image of a bulldog in my head, like short, stocky, fat cheeks and everything else, right? And so, and I didn't want to say anything, but I would tell you, when he contacted me a month later, he said, "Tony, I want you to come over to my house and meet my new dog." There's this black and brown, beautiful bulldog.
Oh my gosh.
And he named the bulldog after his grandfather.
Wow.
And so out of curiosity, I asked him, I said, "Why would you name your dog after your grandfather?" He says, "Because his personality, the way that he looked, was exactly like that. And now I feel as if my grandfather is still here with me, because the same thing that you did with putting the coffee and a sweet snack there for your grandmother and everything. He did it, it was the same thing with him and the dog. He was able to talk to the dog, which actually helped him navigate that world of grief. So, and you had said something earlier, and I want to touch on this a little bit, because I think this is this can be a very dangerous place to be for some people.
Yeah.
Trying to put time limits on your grief.
Yes.
Saying, "Oh, I'm gonna give myself 6 months. I'm going to be done."
Yeah.
Well, what happens when you're at year number 1 and year number 2 and year number 3? Is that 6 months still applicable? Or, and I've seen some people really get mad. They say, "I'm supposed to be done in 6 months. I'm still going through this, and I don't understand what's going on," and all of those different things. So, what do you think about putting time limits on people's grieving process?
No, I don't believe in it. And I think what's so difficult is that our society expects that. What do you got? Like a few days if it's a close member of your family, if you work for a company?
If that. Yeah, if that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think there's something. Well, let's not even talk about what's going on right now in our country and the world. But I think that that would be like a whole another conversation. But I feel like there's something intrinsically wrong with this, that we don't know how to grieve, that people are not given time. I feel like in Native cultures, it's different. I feel like there's, and not just Native cultures, but I don't know. I just feel like we're sort of anemic when it comes to that in this country.
We are.
So I'm really glad you're here to help, that, there doesn't have to be any time limit. And honestly, I feel like we were talking about in the beginning that once you lose a parent or a loved one, it does change us. Like, I am not the same person after any of these big losses. But I wouldn't even want to be. Like, I wouldn't want to be the same person, because they had such a profound, impact on who I am and my life and how I parent and, how I care for people.
Okay. That leads me to my next question. And I'm glad that you brought that up, right? Because I want to kind of add to that and get your thoughts and opinions on this.
Sure.
When people are going through the grieving process, we often tell people, it's an individual experience until you get surrounded by other people,
Mm-hmm.
and then you realize that, yeah, my experience was individual, but it looks just like this individual is over here as well.
Yeah.
Right? It's almost very similar. Only I think the only difference is that it's more personable, right? You know what I'm saying? Because you're the one who has to experience this grief,
Yeah.
and things like that. And so, is there a way that we can begin to talk about that without making it such a solitary thing for
Mm.
everyone, or is it impossible to do that?
Well, I don't know if I'm the expert here. I feel like you're probably more of the expert, but I know a good friend of mine, he lost his partner to cancer, and he joined a support group, right, for people in his situations. And he actually ended up meeting his next girlfriend who had had the same experience with her partner. But I do feel that group therapy or group experiences are probably one of the best, because it's sort of like peer counseling, right? You're it's not so much one-on-one. I prefer one-on-one personally, but in this regard, you can learn from someone else, like you said, who's sharing. They know exactly how you feel because they have gone through the same experience, and I think that can be extremely healing.
So now let's talk about Reiki for a little bit,
Okay.
because I love the art of Reiki, and where it stimulates, where it stems from, right? Because a lot of people don't understand that neither. Like, there's a lot of history when it comes down to Reiki and the way that's used to help people
Mhm.
navigate their traumas and things like that. Um, what are your thoughts on it, and how do you relate it to some of the old ways that they used to use it, right, compared to how they use it today, or is
Okay.
it similar?
Well, I think that I was brought up in an extremely, getting back to my mom,
Mhm.
very Saturnian person, like very realistic, very driven. So the idea that of energy
Mhm.
kind of came to me like much later in my life. Um, the idea that we all carry energy and we interact with our energies. And there can be blockages, and there can be healing of that blockage. This is all sort of, I'd say, in the past 7 to 10 years for me.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, I think I always believed in something like that, but I honestly didn't know about Reiki until pretty recently.
Okay.
Um, so I know but like for anyone who doesn't know, it's kind of the very basic idea is that we have meridians in our body. Um, there are 7 chakras within our body that are energy, right? So we have one near our heart, near our, for our voice, our third eye up here, connection to heaven or whatever you believe in, the solar plexus around the stomach area and around the genitals. And they're all different colors. So the idea is that, like acupuncture, we are sometimes off in our energy or something is blocked, right? Like in terms of grief, our heart chakra might be blocked or just, really needing some love and healing energy. Um, and then of course, there are crystals that correspond. Um, but I sort of stumbled on Reiki, to be very honest. I think I might have mentioned this to you when we talked last time.
Yeah, I think
Um,
so. I think so.
so I'll make it kind of brief that I was in Italy with my sister-in-law, and she had had some kind of lung infection, and I asked an energy worker if she could do a session on my sister-in-law. And so even that for me was kind of a stretch because it's distance healing. So I could do that for you, and you're where you are and I'm where I am. So that took me a little while at first I was like, what? I don't believe it. But the woman, Edwina, that I was learning from, that I was speaking to said, well, I'm going to teach you how to do this because you actually know how to do this. You can do this for people. And I was like, okay. I was a little shocked, but I listened. And so she was my first Reiki teacher. And then I had an Indian teacher during COVID. And that's where I got my second level certification.
Okay.
I think the thing that really helped me to understand and believe in this was people's reaction to when I sent healing. Like, I tend to get visuals. I guess this is part of the gift that I have. Like, if I do Reiki for you, I get visuals of stuff, right? Like, I remember one time for a woman, without mentioning her name, I saw her talking to a man. He was either Latino or African American, and there was like a wallet. She was like holding her wallet out. Now, to me, I have no idea what that means, right? And I told her, and she said, oh, yeah, because I talked to my boss about a raise. I was like, okay. But, so it's really in the, right? It was in the feedback of others
Okay.
that helped me to like believe in myself, because I really didn't, it kind of like sideswiped me. It's like, oh, okay, this is something I know how to do, but like, really? Okay.
I think I would have had the same look like. Okay, I mean, we're just going to go ahead and go with it, and I don't know what I would do. I'd probably start a different conversation, like, so how did that work out for you, just
She
to see
got
what
the
they
raise,
say.
by the way. She did get the
Whatever works at this point.
Yeah. But no,
Whatever works at this point.
yeah, so I mean, and I really have mostly done distance healing. Like, I haven't had a lot of people in person because I really learned more during COVID, so we weren't together with people. But I have done a few in-person sessions. Anyway, so I get people feel relaxed. Sometimes they fall asleep. But if you hadn't tried it, just check it out. Like, it's definitely worth trying once. I don't know if I answered your question.
Now, I want to talk about something that you had mentioned earlier.
Sure.
And this is something that I truly believe in as well. So, being able to travel the world and see different cultures and things like that. The one thing that people in other countries would say that we Westerners don't know how to grieve. Right, but until you attend one of their rituals and you see what actually goes on, it's more of a celebration. There's movement, there's music, there's screaming, there's dancing, all of these different things, right? And it's such a beautiful thing. And the more and more I dove into it, the more and more it made sense to me, because one of the things, I won't say early on in my grieving process, but I would say at some point, in the beginning section of it, I started to understand what movement actually meant, right? And I think, and I could be wrong, so fact check me when I say this, please. I think with the movement, it actually helps us align the energy in our chakras, right? As we begin to move this grief, this through our bodies and things like that, because we're all vibrational, right? We all function off of frequency, and I realized that certain frequencies will tap into your grief or your trauma, your mental health, and things like that, which allows you to move it around through your body more frequently, so it doesn't become trapped into those vital organs, causing you to get sick.
Yes.
Right. Okay. All right. So, what can you add to that, please?
Well, I'm a little embarrassed to say I probably don't know as much about it as I should. Like, I definitely could use some more learning about, the science of it. But yes, what you said is very on point, in that dis-ease is caused by imbalance within us, right?
Right.
Like, you might have heart disease because you had a breakup that you never dealt with the feelings. Or you might be so angry about something, a betrayal or a hurt, that you have a liver problem. There are definitely areas that correspond. Grief is actually held in the lungs. Yes. And it's interesting because I've always had not always, but I've had asthma a lot of my life, but it's gotten a lot worse in the last 10 years. So I don't think that's accidental because, I lost my mom about 10 years ago. So in terms of, like, I even just had someone draw a card for me this morning, and they said, you need to work on your heart chakra. And, so one of the ways to do that for those who don't know is so the heart chakra is green. So eating green foods, wearing green clothes or accessories, a green crystal, for example. Also, the rose quartz is known to be the crystal for the heart chakra. So I know a lot of women, it's kind of funny. We just kind of tuck them into our bras. That's a little secret.
We're not going to go there. We're not even going to go there, okay? I understand wanting to be close, but...
So you can stick it in your pocket, carry it around with you, just kind of hold. I don't even think I have one here, but, and these are like we have to remember, and I know this might sound woo-woo, but we're actually like pieces of stardust and like the universe. That's amazing. How cool is that? Crystals are part of the earth. Like we're not joking around here, people. Like these are real things, And I think it's funny how a lot of people are just like, oh, that woo-woo stuff. No, it's actually crystals are part of the earth. We're part of the earth and the heavens. So just that alone can blow your mind right there.
Yeah. As you was talking about that, I was thinking about, I got curious about, right? And I want to know more about it because you said we're all part of stardust. We're all part of, the particles around us. And I do believe that, right? Mm-hmm. But there's people out there that may not understand what that means, right? Because in my belief system, I believe that we're all connected, right? Sure. In some way, form, or fashion because of our genetic makeup. Right, we are connected to everything that's around us. So when you say stardust, I actually look at that and go, yeah, you're actually right, because we are part of everything that moves and breathes and crawls and walks. Right, it's a part of life. We're part of the light that radiates on us, right? Because that's what gives us energy. That's what helps us, function and build muscle. But also, I think it's a way for us to open up a lot more, to be more receptive of what we need to receive.
Yes.
That's what are your thoughts and opinions on that?
I don't know. I think it's pretty humbling, actually, like when I think about it. Both that we're like such small parts of the universe, but that we are also incorporating the universe itself, whether it's the earth, and like pieces of, planetary stuff, we're both of those things. So being divine and human at the same time. And the interconnectedness, absolutely. I was reading about, I forgot what it's called, the matrilineal Eve, that we have all descended. Sorry, my dog is doing something.
No worries.
We're all descended from her. So I believe an African woman, Eve. That's what she's named. So, I mean, I definitely think we have more in common than we have differences. Unfortunately, that's not what's being played out right now. But I do believe that's for a higher. I think this is really the Aquarian age, in that all this craziness that's going on and disparity and war has to happen, unfortunately, to bring about the age of Aquarius, which is the age of the average person, you and me, like the power of the people, kind of back to the energies of the 1960s. So if anyone's despairing, as I think we all are, it's not going to be like this forever. It's like I feel that it's unfortunately a necessary evil, because it has to bring up what's what is actually in people's minds and hearts. And it's not a sustainable thing. People cannot, I know people that are barely making it on food stamps and Medicaid. If they have that safety net taken away, not to get into politics too much, but if they have that taken
That's
away,
fine.
they're just going to be, I mean, I just see mass revolution. Like, how can people are working and not being able to afford their rent or their food. It's just not sustainable.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got off.
That causes no, you're fine. You're fine because it opens up the doors to say, that causes its own set of grief as well, right? Because when you can no longer afford to take care of the basic necessities like food, right? And I was talking to somebody last night, food and let's see, water, electricity, bread, and things like that. People will force themselves into a state of grief and not even know it, right? And it will almost be very similar to experiencing a major loss in your life, or major someone close to you passing away. It can almost mimic that.
Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so now I want to just ask you another question. When you think about the 5 pillars of grief, what are your thoughts when it comes down to that?
Is that from the Kubler-Ross?
Yeah. Because there's a lot of education that needs to go along with that as well. I believe.
Yeah, I've read some of her books. I find it helpful in terms of just to put it very straight, no, you're not going crazy if you're feeling these things, because people might be wondering, well, why am I feeling so angry? Well, that's a normal part of the grief.
Yeah.
Or why do I not? I remember when my dad passed, I just didn't want to really talk to people. I didn't want to go to the movies. I didn't want to celebrate anything. So I do feel there are stages, but I also feel like they're not necessarily linear. I think sometimes that gives the impression that, okay, this is going to happen now, then this. And I don't know if you've seen those memes where grief is kind of a scribble. It's just like a scribble scrabble. I think that's more accurate, is, you just don't really know when it's going to hit you. I couldn't celebrate Mother's Day for many years, at least 6 or 7 years. And my kids are like, but Mom, we want to celebrate. I'm like, I'm just sorry. I can't even think about Mother's Day. I would stay off social media. I would just tell my friends, please don't talk to me about it, So yeah, I don't know if that really answers your question, but
it does. I love the way that you put it out there, because it leads me to my next question. I know you probably got things you got to go do today and things like that, but
I'm good.
What I found was, it's not even a question, it's more of a statement that I would love to get your thoughts on it and piggyback off. When I first got into this field, I was under the impression that the 5 pillars of grief was a guiding point, right? You know what I'm saying? It's going to happen in these different ways,
right.
You know what I'm saying? And just to be prepared for it. And, so when you understand the 5 stages of grief, or the 5 pillars of grief, you got, anger, denial, you got acceptance.
Yeah.
Huh?
Bargaining is one of them, I think.
Bargaining is one of them. And what I found was, is that if you take them and you put them in their own little category, you will find that the things that you experience, you can actually add to those pillars of grief, right? So, along with anger, you may experience depression, anxiety, or sorrow, right? That can go under anger. So now you just got 5 more. You got 4 more that you've added to this, and and the list will go on and on. And I've met people, because I'm always curious about, what are you feeling right now? Can you articulate what's going on? And if so, put it in one of the 5 pillars.
I like that.
And what I found is that I had a client get all the way up to 47. So he found an additional 42 compartments to grief. And I've known people that are still going to this day. And I'm like, how many things can you articulate, right? But I think it's always fascinating the way that it can grow. Now, you know, and most people will argue with you. And I don't even see why it's an argument sometimes, because people already know that, you know, when it comes down to the pillars of grief, you know,
Yeah.
there's a reason why it was made for those who were going through a terminal illness,
Right. Right.
and not used as a normal grieving phase.
Mm,
But people argue this thing all the time, and I'm going, you know, this is one of the first things people teach you when you do these things,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know, so there's really no argument, but I love it, because people are so adamant about being right about it. If that makes sense. They're like, oh no, this is the reason why we was taught not to like this, or taught not to use this. And I go, well, you was taught that, but what
Yeah.
about the other people that wasn't?
Exactly.
You know, like, come on now, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? And what I found is that most people will get to a certain place in their grief and forget where they came from.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? Like, they expect everybody to be on the same level as them.
yes. Yes.
Now, in your line of work, with the work that you do, what are some of the challenges that you come across when dealing with said situations?
Well, if you don't mind, if I kind of do a tangential answer to that,
Yeah, most definitely.
one thing I did want to talk about. I don't know how much time we have left. Um, was suicide, if that's okay.
Yes. Trigger warning for anybody out there.
Fair
Please.
warning, yes. Um, so it kind of it's interesting because in my life, I unfortunately lost a client about 2 years ago to suicide, and it's something. It's sort of like, as a therapist, you kind of know that this could happen, but until it happens, like, I cannot even tell you. I was just so, I think, shocked, and it was a young person, a young woman, and um, I do feel that I did what I could have done for her. I believe strongly that our souls are autonomous in terms of deciding about our lives. Um, once you're an adult, if somebody does not want to be here, that is kind of their right. I did do what I felt I needed to do as her therapist. Um, and it was kind of interesting because here again, death was sort of kind of crashed into my life, and I also could not work for about a year. I took a year off. And the gift that this young woman gave me was that I realized that there were personal woundings I had around suicide that I thought I had done a lot of work on, but obviously not enough. Unfortunately, my dad, in his alcoholism and trauma of being a veteran and his young life, he lost his mom young, and his father was very abusive and put the kids in an orphanage. So he had a lot of abandonment trauma before he went to war. And drinking was how he dealt with it. So he was often, I have a feeling he might have been bipolar. Like, I don't know that he was ever correctly diagnosed, but he was often suicidal in my life, like in my life with him. He often was either mixing pills and alcohol, or just not wanting to be here, I think, because it was so painful. So, like, I don't think I realized till I was older, like, well, first of all, what about me? Because I'm your kid. Like, hello, I would like you to be here. And I remember one time, being in the ER with him, and he basically signed himself out against doctor's orders, even though he was suicidal. Like, they could not keep him there.
Yeah.
So he basically walked up and left. But so, sort of the gift in the tragedy of this young woman taking her life was that I just realized that, I was a young person, a teenager, an adult, And often I would be called into my father's episodes. His wife, after my mom, basically, called me in, and she's like, your dad's suicidal. I need you to come. Now, thankfully, I had a therapist at the time who said, no, you're not going, because I was still pretty young. She said, what? God forbid something happened to your father. You would never forgive yourself. It's not appropriate that you're being asked. He should be somewhere safe, where he's safe. And it was sort of like it took that for me to realize that, yeah, that's not okay. That's not fair.
No, it's not. That really isn't.
Yeah. So, I mean, this went on. Unfortunately, he did have help, mental health help. And he died of a heart attack. It was nothing that he caused. But I think that, it was like, first of all, it was such a shock, and it was so painful, that my client had ended her life. And then I had this trigger to my childhood, my adolescence, young adulthood in my family, and then I had sort of a double whammy. My son had really basically almost overdosed because he was having trouble with some addiction issues. And that was like toward the end of COVID. So it was like this double thing, like my father, my son, and sort of that feeling of like helplessness that we have, of like, I know I can't save anyone, but just as a mom, like that was just so painful, and thank God he's here and he's doing great. But one of the reasons that it's interesting, because my first volume of my book, which is Letters to Myself, this volume is about self-harm and suicide. So trigger warning, anyone coming on now. I had taken my daughter to a medical appointment, and the doctor handed me a form and said, if it's okay, we're going to talk to your teen about mental health, because on the sheet it said that the number 2 cause of death in the United States for teenagers was suicide, which I didn't know. Like, I knew it was up there, but I had no idea it was that high up. So I felt very called to do something. I really wasn't sure what to do, but I decided to start this book. I'm really grateful to Blair and Elite Publishing. And it's basically a compilation of letters from people who have been through this, either an attempted suicide or suicidal thoughts. And my goal was to provide some hope for someone, a younger person who might be reading it and saying, okay, you know what? There is hope. There's an alternative. There's a way out that I haven't maybe thought of. But look at all these people. They've all been through this, or they have a loved one who have been through it. So that was sort of what started this series. And then I just sort of took off different very difficult topics, and you can look them up if you want, but sexual assault, rape, addiction, LGBTQIA stories, transitioning stories, bullying and abuse. So yeah, that's part of my story. And it was just interesting because my client's passing sort of collided with this book. It was like kind of by chance, but not by chance, of course, but it sort of was happening at the same time. It wasn't because of her, but, just interesting how things happen that way.
Isn't it funny how things happen?
Right?
It really is. As you was talking about that, I was like, you could see the pattern. You could see how everything has a strange way of coming back around and reconnecting, but also showing you like the gifts that's been given to you during the process of the pain,
Yeah.
and releasing and becoming who you are during that, right? And how many books did you write?
So I wrote part of it, but like a lot of other authors have contributed. For right now, there are 5 that have been actually in hardcover. So these
Okay.
are the 5, and then the 6th one's coming out within a couple weeks. It's
Okay.
already on Kindle. If you want to go to Amazon, you can check it out. The 6th one is on well-being, emotional, spiritual, and physical well-being,
Mhm.
and the last one will be on non-judgment of self and others.
That's important stuff right there. I can't wait to dive deeper into it and learn more about it, right? Because I love reading that. I love reading books that's educational but take you on a journey as well. And it seems like you've done a lot of great work in that field. So, which leads me to I have 3 more questions for you before I let you go. My first question would be, Jen, how can people find you?
Okay. So my name that it comes up, Jen Taylor LCSW, that's on my Facebook, my Meta. My Instagram is Jen Tay, so JENTAY 1231. And feel free to email me if you want. My email is jentaylorfani@gmail.com, JENTAYLOR, F like Frank, ANI @gmail.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, my next question would be, if Jen had a superpower, what would it be?
Well, I don't want to be like self-involved, but I feel like I have a little bit of a superpower, and you have it too, is I can help people have some hope. And I'm so honored that I have this privilege in this lifetime to give a little bit of hope, a little spark.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. One more question for you. If you could leave the audience with something, what would you leave with?
That's a great question. I think something that's taken me many years, probably a good 55 years, to realize is that we are all intrinsically worthy. So I don't believe in original sin. I don't, anyone who does, I'm not dissing that. Just I personally don't believe in it. I believe that we're all worthy right now as you are, whether you're employed, whether you're wealthy, poor, homeless, whether you have a BMW, whether you have children or not. You are worthy just as you are right now without having to do anything.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And with that being said, Jen, we're going to wrap up this episode of Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. I want to say thank you for being an amazing guest and coming on and sharing your work, your journey, and your knowledge with the audience. And, I can't wait to learn more about what you do. But, seeing how we're going to work together in the future, collaboration, networking, and things like that. So you guys, if this is your first time and you like the conversation, do me a favor, head on over to their YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. If you want to contact Jen, her information is in the YouTube channel. You can connect with her on Facebook. Her links are there, so go over there and check her out, right? And if you're looking for support, you guys already know what it is. It's you know what you're getting into. And with that being said, guys, we're going to wrap this one up. If you know anybody who could benefit from the conversation that we have, do me a favor, share this along with them. And and let's reach more people. Let's get more people involved. Let's start having more conversations, because grief is not linear, and you don't have to do it alone. And again, this podcast serves as a resource as well. And the people that are up here are out here changing people's lives one heartbeat at a time. With that being said, guys, I am Tony Lynch. I appreciate you guys for your support. We're going to see you guys in the next one. Jen, thank you for being on the show yet again. And I can't wait to do even more with you. Everybody else, you guys have a blessed day. And we're going to see you guys in the next one. All right? Peace.